Yes, sir.
Pete, going back to Social Security, 2 years ago we stopped funding it by 50% by decreasing the deduction. When we passed that, do we have any way of making it up?
So part of the many efforts, I think you're referring to the payroll tax holiday?
Yes.
Yeah. So part of the many efforts that were made in the last 2 years to try to urge the recovery along was a payroll tax holiday. So basically, since January of '09 until pretty soon, I think, individuals have not been paying that their match on Social Security. That has been, it's a myth, or it is a statement that was made out there that has created a big hole in Social Security. What has happened is that instead of having no money to flow to Social Security for that to be true, the general fund of the Treasury has written the check to the Social Security system. So we do have issues down the road, specifically 25 years down the road with Social Security, but that's not going to be one of them. The Treasury will make up that shortfall in the system.
The other side of the question is, what percentage of increase do you think will be involved in the taxes to pay for our health care?
What percentage increase will?
Taxes, not just those income taxes.
Right, right. So this has become a very current topic, right? When the Supreme Court declared the ACA constitutional, they did it, as many of you know, not under Commerce Clause, but under Congress's power to tax. So in the political world, then, because tax is a very, very bad word, that became the way to talk about healthcare. It's a big tax. So let's talk about exactly what it is. The healthcare reform, first of all, unusually for a major program done in the last 15 years, was paid for, meaning it has a 1.1 trillion net cost over 10 years, and there was 1.1 trillion raised to pay for that through largely a couple of things, but the two biggest ones are, if you are a household making more than $250,000 a year, you do not pay Medicare taxes on investment income, interest, dividends, other passive income above $250,000. Now, if you make more than $250,000 as a household, you will pay a 3.8% Medicare tax on that passive income. The other big element was that for, and the numbers aren't right at the top of my head, but let's call it $30,000. If you have a health care plan valued at more than $30,000 a year, there is now a tax on the value of that healthcare plan above $30,000. Those are the two largest ways in which this bill was paid for.
You also have tax on Medicare premiums, tax on tanning salons. What other little taxes were built into that?
There were. I gave you the two big ones. Medical device manufacturers are paying a small percentage tax on the sale of their medical devices. It's a long list of things. Well, again, if your household makes more than $250,000 and you have a lot of passive income, you're going to pay a little more. If you're making 120 grand a year and you have a normal plan, you're not going to pay anything else.
Jim, we both know corporations don't pay taxes. They pass it on to us.
Well, still, what I said before stands. We're talking about taxes on individuals, not corporations. There's no change to the corporate tax associated with the ACA. If you are making more than $250,000, there will be a slight increment on the money that you pay on your interest and dividends. That is true. Corporations is a different issue. Now, the other thing,
about the Affordable Care Act, with regard to, I guess, the cost of small businesses. So, for example, if I have 20 employees and I don't want to or can't afford to pay them health care, what is the financial penalty per employee to my business?
20 employees?
Yeah.
0. You have no mandate. You have no mandate as a small business to cover any of your employees until you reach 50 employees.
And at that point, what is the cost of that small business?
Okay, you caught me flat-footed here. Once you reach 50 employees, you either cover them or you pay into the system.
Penalties.
2,000.
Was it 2,000?
2,000.
Right.
It changes
It's
every
in that
year.
neighborhood. It's in that
It's higher
neighborhood of a
every
couple
year.
thousand per employee.
So, all right, so that's basically if you have a company for 50 people, it's going to cost you $100,000 not to pay, not to contribute to healthcare, is that right?
What I'm not sure if it's on the next incremental employee or whether you pay, but you got the concept right. Yeah.
It's going to be so, isn't it going to be very, very taxing on small businesses going forward?
You got it.
I mean,
That's the
it's an
purpose.
awful lot in their back to try to, accommodate healthcare for everyone.
Yeah, look, in 1946, this country put in place an employer-provided health insurance system. I don't think, in retrospect, most of us would choose to do that again. I personally don't think that it's the most efficient way to do it, because for all the reasons that you point out. Now, when you're a business that has 50 employees, the truth is that a lot of those businesses, as a benefit to their employees, because it's obviously good to have healthy employees, they do begin to pay for health insurance. But there is absolutely no question that our businesses, big and small, since 1946, have been burdened, if you want to use that word, with contributing to or paying for the cost of health insurance for their employees. We did not go a path that some people urged us to do, which was to go a path of, the European path, where there's some sort of nationalized healthcare system, or even a single-payer system where, presumably you would be indifferent. But yes, there are uncomfortable aspects of the decision taken after World War II to have an employer-provided system.
I guess just the last question on that would be, so I guess my concern is going forward, unemployment is a brutal situation, not here in Connecticut, but throughout the country. And if employers are forced to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars not to provide that insurance, what is that going to do to our economy with regard to unemployment?
Well, unemployment is serious in Connecticut, and it's serious in most places nationally. We're still at 8.2%. We've still got millions of Americans who want to work who cannot. So it's actually quite serious still in Connecticut. And the point you make, I'm not going to argue with you on, meaning any sort of tax, any sort of burden that we place on individuals or businesses will have, the economists will tell you, a slightly warping effect. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it doesn't. Any tax we pay, any tax a corporation pays, has an effect economically, which is why 2 years ago, and I made an awful lot of people in my own party angry on this, when the economy looked a lot worse than it did today, I voted for an extension of the 01 and the 03 tax cuts. I thought it was actually a pretty good deal for the middle class and below. But if you have ideas, because the next step, and look, I think I've been pretty straight with you on healthcare. I happen to believe it was a good step in the right direction, but we've got a long way to go. And one of the ways I'd like to see us go would be to somehow move away from this employer-based system. One cost we didn't even point out was, if you've got an employer-based system, there's a disincentive for a person to leave an employer to go start a new business. If I've got a great job at UBS or GE or any one of the Pitney Bowes, one of the great employers in our district here, great health insurance, I've got this idea for a startup business that maybe could grow up to employ 300 people, I kind of don't want to leave. So there's a lot of problems with an employer-based system.
It was started as a tax benefit
Yes.
for corporations, so that they wouldn't have to pay increased taxes to make it earn more money, and give the money to health insurance.
That's correct. The reason this came about, the reason we have this system is because there were wage and price controls in World War II. They wouldn't let wages increase, and so employers were given tax breaks to actually make their